Hi there. Let's talk about tax in the light of how can you be able to avoid tax or even not pay tax at all, or even so how to reduce your tax to a level you desire. Let's talk about that in this video. And by the way guys, this is a video sharing with you how to be able to reduce your tax or even so not pay tax in legal ways. I'm not talking about you evading tax. I'm discussing measures around you avoiding tax. And by the way guys, tax avoiding is legal. Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoiding is whereby you plan your affairs in a way that they are aligned to the laws of the country, and even so ultimately based on this particular alignment you end up not paying tax or even paying very little tax. And by the way, that is one key area whereby the rich out here, millionaires and billionaires, actually beat the poor population out there because they have planned their affairs very well that actually they aren't even paying tax at all, or even they are paying very little tax. And yet the most poor of the populations out there are paying very hefty tax, regardless of talking about which country. And just telling you this is quite fascinating. For example, in this world we have about 2,000 billionaires, and yet these about 2,000 billionaires out there hold wealth equivalent to over 60% of the world's population. In essence, about 2,000 people out there hold more wealth compared to almost 5 billion people across the world. That is how insane it is. And this tells you, if you plan your affairs very well, you can also be able to grow your wealth, be able to have more money to yourself, of course through planning your affairs in very legal ways, so that ultimately you can use this money to be able to invest and then see how also you can propel your wealth. That's why I'm making this video to share with you 7 possible tricks you can use for you to be able to reduce your tax burden or even so avoid tax altogether. You are all much welcome to the Money Daily YouTube channel. My name is Afagza Sifuna. Having said that, the very fast and easiest way you can be able to reduce your tax burden, more so tax which call pay as you earn. Pay is by you earning little amount of money. Yes guys, that's also an option, but this is not an option I'd encourage you to follow, because ultimately you're thinking about increasing your income, increasing the different income streams out there. So yes, this is an option at hand. For example, you earning less amount of money, but also understand you have responsibilities, you're thinking about building wealth. If the only motivator is for you to avoid paying tax or even so paying very little amount of money in form of tax, guys, this is not a motivation for you, because ultimately you need money, even though this could be one of the easiest ways you could look to evoke for you to be able to pay less tax, or even so in case you fall under the tax bracket of not paying tax, you can also evoke that method for you not to be able to pay tax. And then the second way you can end up avoiding paying tax is you moving to a country, moving to a state whereby paying tax on your earnings is effectively 0%. People don't pay tax. For example, in different Gulf nations out there, these countries are very rich in oil. The government has very big oil money. And also in some states out there, for example in America, some few states out there, for example Florida, Washington, just to mention a few states out there, also they allow for people not to pay tax on their pay. In essence, pay as you earn, you're not being charged tax, but of course you incurring other taxes out there in other forms, because the government charges multiple taxes on any person out there. But you move into a jurisdiction whereby you don't pay tax on your income is gonna also be an option for you, more so if you can get this option at hand by you relocating, right? And then the third way you can be able to avoid tax is by you contributing to a retirement scheme. Of course, retirement schemes out there in different countries come through by different names. Whether it is, for example, 201 out there, or even talk about in countries like, for example, Kenya, talk about NSSF, you name it. These come in different forms. And even beyond that, also we have private contribution to retirement schemes out there in form of pensions. Okay, you can earmark part of your income, for example, to go towards paying these particular pensions, so that ultimately your effective tax rate is reduced. And I'm saying so because most of the times these particular payments on pension are actually tax free, because tax is not imposed on them. you are contributing towards the bigger purpose, whereby you're going to be able to access this money after multiple years, or even so, in case going through government is going to be able to invest and even so get some returns over years. And with that, it tells you that a good number of jurisdictions out there actually allow for people not to pay tax on contribution to retirement schemes, which also most countries out there allow you to pay more and more of whichever chunk of your income you are desiring, of course, to a given limit. So look at squeezing this to the ceiling so that you can be able to avoid tax or even so reduce your effective tax burden. And then the fourth way why you can go about reducing tax which you are being charged is by you investing in tax advantaged investments out there. What do I mean? We have some investments out there which have tax advantage. For example, you investing in bonds, more so government bonds, whether it is national level government or even municipalities. Guys, these are the type of investments out there which actually allow you to put down money, and actually this is the kind of money which won't be charged tax on. How awesome is that? You can earmark a good amount of your income, for example, to push towards this investment, and ultimately some of them could be tax. They don't attract any tax out there because they have a tax advantage. And even beyond bonds, we also have, for example, some contributions out there, like for example, housing funds, which in essence you are contributing money which is going to assist you acquire your house, and the government allows you not to pay tax on this particular contribution. How awesome is that? It's effectively you saving, and ultimately you saving or cutting off that particular payment on tax on your income, and all this amount of money you pushing towards that particular housing fund. I think that is also a genius way of you going about avoiding tax in a very legal way, which is actually permitted by government. Okay? And then another way, which is the fifth way of you avoiding paying tax, is by you utilizing tax credits, which are actually permissible by government out there and also in the law. For these guys, you might need, for example, to consult professionals out there. And I'm saying so because depending on accounting standards out there, there are those items which normally have tax credits, okay? And in case you're talking about company accounts out there, companies are allowed to reduce some items of their income statements before they impose tax. Things like, for example, obsolete assets out there. All these are some of the things which are allowed to be reduced from their effective earnings before they expose this to taxes. So consult professionals out there, and they're going to advise you which items attract tax credits, and then you're going to be able to actualize this or execute them, and ultimately be able to reduce your effective tax rate. And the tax rate will remain the same, yes, but the amount you're going to pay is going to effectively come down because of you reducing what you can be able to charge on effective taxable income. Guys, if you're a professional firm out there, look to engage the services of professionals out there, and they're gonna advise you on how to go about this. And then the sixth way through which you can also look to reduce your tax burden or even so not pay tax at all is by you, for example, getting employed by organizations out there which have treaties with governments with regard to taxation. For example, the United Nations. Different UN agencies out there have treaties with governments, more so in developing countries, whereby their staff in these countries aren't paying taxes to that particular country government. Of course, some of the different parent countries out there deduct this on their earnings. But even so, we're talking about a good number of countries out there having agreements with the UN system and even other organizations out there, for example, consulates, embassies, whereby employees don't really pay their effective tax rate. They could have, for example, an internal tax, or even beyond that, they won't even charge tax on their incomes because they have treaties with government. In case you can jump in any of these organizations out there, it could also be an option for you to avoid paying tax. But all that, you need also to jump into this organization if they align with their career objective, if they align with their earning potential. Because most of the times in these countries, they're talking about the earnings or the incomes or the pays from these particular organizations not being extremely lucrative as the payments in, for example, private sectors. And then the seventh way through which you can go about avoiding tax is by you being smart with regards to how you shop. And I'm saying so because we all know in different countries out there is value added tax on almost everything out there, whether it is things coming to the country and also things in different stores and also supermarket shelves out there. There is a VAT which effectively takes high the price of these different commodities. What if, for example, you plan your shopping to even shop while you're traveling, for example, in the tax-free zones, okay? Even beyond that, why not, for example, look to do shopping and prioritize buying used items? You could, for example, look to buy used items which are still very functional because these items don't attract tax. Already, tax was paid by their first users. If, for example, the second user of this particular item, you won't pay tax. Guys, those are the 7 ways you could look for you to be able to effectively reduce the tax you're paying in absolute terms, or even so drop the tax rate, depending on what the laws of a country allow. What do you think about these tips? I hope you've gotten 1 or 2 which are enticing and maybe you could look to utilize for you to be able to avoid paying tax in very legal ways. Thanks a lot for watching. I look forward to share with you other awesome videos next time. Bye bye and you all take care.